Hey, how's it going? It's your boy Adam Warrior, the Owls Challenger Coach, here to bring you the 10.7 High-ELO tier list. But before we jump into it right now, our partner program is back once again, and every creator in the program will be entered to win a TL jersey, Tobii eye tracker, or premium this month. The program is designed to help creators reach their potential and comes with a bunch of benefits, so check it out below or tell any of your friends that stream or make videos. Now that we got that out of the way, let's actually jump right into the tier list. For the top lane, our S tier roster will be Jax, Wukong, Set, Renekton, Aatrox, and Camille. For the changes, we got Lucian joining the top lane list because this is the new home of AD carries where they can actually have impact by winning the laning phase and not dragged down by support difference. Instead, now it's just going to be jungle difference. Nasus post boss is doing okay, enough to reach B tier. Fiora will move from S tier to A tier due to the power gap between her and some of the other more reliable top laners. Now, she does have good matchups into the S tiers, but Bork users are just outperforming almost everyone in the top lane, and though she can build it, it's not as OP on her. Garen's gonna move from A tier to B tier post nerfs, Pantheon A tier to B tier as he's having trouble dueling the Bork bruisers currently and is more of a mid laner or jungler in the current meta. Ornn's gonna be moving from A tier to S tier because he's broken and competitive. Wait, this is a solo queue tier list? Okay, so he's moving from A tier to B tier because even in High-ELO, he's not much of a solo queue champion. When the meta revolves around Bork and Death Dance, he's still gonna be an annoying champion to play against, but he sits below a 50% win rate. And also, you're welcome, because Kalista Top is off the list as a public service, as even though it's playable in High-ELO, it has around a 44% win rate, which is, you know, if you're not the Shy, you pretty much suck at that champion post-laning phase. I'm sorry that the truth hurts top laners, but years of mashing your faces together in the Garen versus Darius matchup or Maokai versus Cho'Gath matchup did not adequately prepare you to play an AD carry like Kalista. First up for our highlights, we actually got Sylas, who's going to move from B tier to A tier. He has around a 53% win rate and a 5% pick rate and can be actually considered better in the top lane than in mid lane, or at least it's pretty even. Sylas is a really strong overall pick, and it fits right into top lane too, as he is a Conqueror abuser. Right now, in the current meta, Sylas just has so many amazing ultimates to steal that he becomes just such a strong solo queue champion when he's abusing Conqueror plus W max. And that means he can actually be played in 3 roles: top lane, mid lane, and even jungle if you already know how to jungle, but he's definitely worse in that role. In terms of matchups in the top lane, you're gonna want to play him against champions like Ornn, Vladimir, Akali, and you're gonna want to avoid Fiora, Poppy, and Kled, as in, he's just gonna get outdueled by Fiora, and stealing her ultimate isn't amazing because it's hard for him to take. Poppy is, you know, Poppy, she's just gonna use W, and then Sylas can't use W, and that's the entire champion. And then Kled's got that ridiculous anti-healing, and he pretty much wins lane versus those kind of champions anyways. Now, there is a reason I actually mentioned Sylas as an Akali top counter if you were paying attention, and that's because she's actually gonna move from off the list to A tier. Might seem a little bit weird, but even before her buffs came in, she was getting picked in both solo lanes and competitive, and now that those buffs are actually coming through, her win rate in the top lane is actually funny enough better than in mid lane, and it's around 52% and 4% pick rate, which is, it doesn't sound amazing, but that's really good for Akali because she is typically below 50%. I know top laners are probably not happy about having to see her again, but she is one of the few champions who's actually able to deal with ranged top laners like Kalista, Vayne, Vladimir, which is why she's making a comeback into the meta. I mean, she also does fine versus juggernauts like Alawi or Mordekaiser or tanks like Ornn, but she does do bad versus tanks like Maokai, champions like Renekton who can just W and one-shot her. And though, of course, this isn't as popular, but she gets absolutely murdered by Volibear top. So if you're able to pick that champion, which I'm assuming most people can play him, if you see an Akali top lane, pick that Volibear, it's a free matchup. Speaking about AP champions invading top lane, we have one of the most hated champions in the game, I think, and he's gonna be moving from B tier to A tier, and that's Vladimir. Personally, I don't know why top laners hate him so much. They should be used to playing against resourceless champions who are too tanky to die and can one-shot you while bullying lane. That's just top lane right now. They should get used to it. Don't worry though, Vladimir is only gonna move to the bottom of A tier, so don't panic. He does do better in the mid lane currently. In the top lane, he's just abusing immobile juggernauts and tanks. He's still gonna be weak to meta champions like Aatrox, at least in solo queue, and he gets super hard countered by Tryndamere, and he loses to Riven, who by the way is almost reaching S tier due to how badly she abuses Death Dance. But you know, that's just top lane right now. You're either going to be building Bork, you're going to be abusing Death Dance, hopefully both, that's what makes you truly overpowered. You can also be a ranged champion or be some kind of tank like Shen or Maokai, but you know, that's just how top lane works in High-ELO right now. In the mighty jungle, our S tier roster is going to be Karthus, Graves, Elise, Echo, Rek'Sai, Lee, Singa. As for the changes to the list, we've got Wen Zhao returning to B tier post buffs. He's doing alright, just don't take phase rush, stick to the Halo Blades, is just way better. Ivern post buffs is playable again, so he's gonna go to B tier. Olaf will be moving from S tier to A tier, but is a very close candidate to stay in S, as his early game dominance is truly valuable in High-ELO. It's just hard to put him in the same tier as stuff like Graves, which I will talk about in a bit. But sidebar, what do you guys think about adding in a God tier or something like A+ to deal with these kind of situations? Let me know in the comments section. I've currently been having a debate with the other people who work on the tier list about adding in these kind of options potentially, so your input's gonna help out a lot. And then we also have Sejuani moving from A tier to B tier, but that's not that big of a deal because no one likes her. For our first highlight, we got Trundle moving from B tier to A tier. He gets a strong benefit from the way the game is currently played, with all of the melee champions that are pretty tanky in this meta, giving him a lot of people to steal stats from and outduel. In terms of matchups, he does really well into Olaf and Lee Sin, as not only does he just steal their stats and then one-shot them, but he can match them in terms of 1v1 in the early game. And of course, he's going to be really good into tank junglers like Sejuani and Nunu, but they aren't that popular in High-ELO. He's better in terms of a tank counter in low-elo where people actually play tank junglers. In terms of champions he's gonna suck against, he does get outscaled by Graves, he can't touch Echo at all, he's gonna get completely bullied by Kindred, and once again outscaled by Karthus. Trundle is just an amazing counter pick in this meta though, just don't blind pick him. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of situations to actually choose him because there's so many tanks and melee champions for him to beat in this meta, so just be patient, don't blind pick him, wait for the enemy team to insta-lock Lee Sin or Olaf, and then pick up your free win. Our next highlighted champion is actually going to be Nocturne, who's going to go from off the list to B tier. The reason for that is he's actually seeing more competitive play in Korea, and even Cloud9 has picked it up in competitive play as well. Now, the reason for this is that he does extremely well in engage comps or in 1-3-1 situations, and as you've probably noticed, a lot of the solo laners right now are in fact 1-3-1 style champions. They're all assassins or Bork users who like to split push, and so Nocturne works really well with this kind of play. The other types of champions that are popular right now are engage style dragon fighters like Rumble mid, for example, and when you pair those two together and you Rumble ultimate on top of the Nocturne ultimate, it becomes really hard to deal with even in solo queue. In terms of matchups, he's really strong into Lee Sin because he can outduel him pretty easily by blocking the Q with his W. He beats Zac because Zac, when he tries to engage, Nocturne's just going to ult and counter engage. And he also beats Sejuani because she can't put up enough pressure to actually stop Nocturne from split pushing or getting to 6 really quickly. And then in terms of the 1v1, Spell Shield's way too strong versus her. He does do badly versus Kindred, Graves, and AP Shyvana for very obvious reasons. He doesn't have the range to deal with Kindred and Graves, and then AP Shyvana actually just out AFK farms him and then outscales him, so that's what happens. Well, that means that our last highlight jungle champion for this patch is probably going to be one of the best junglers in the game right now, and post buffs that are happening on PvE right now to the jungle, and we got Graves. In terms of how to build him, there's been a bit of a debate lately between Dark Harvest, Phase Rush, and Fleet Footwork, and then either going Lethality or Bruiser or even Crit. In terms of the stats though, in High-ELO, the Phase Rush style has come out on top in terms of which setup people who actually main Graves prefer. Not to mention, Death's Dance is completely overpowered on him, as well as on most champions, but particularly on him, it just makes him way too tanky. Not only that though, he's only going to get better when the upcoming changes to jungle XP come through, where they're potentially going to reach his season 6 status. Probably not, he was just way too busted there, but he's going to get pretty close, because ganking junglers are getting a bit of a nerf, and power farming junglers are getting a buff with these changes, which means champions like Graves or Karthus, who are already S tier, are just going to become mega overpowered S tier in High-ELO. Starting up in the mid lane, our S tier roster will be Casawin, Syndra, Sylas, Katarina, Zoe, LeBlanc, and Kiana. Got a decent amount of changes for this patch. We got Rumble going to A tier due to his absurd dragonfight and roaming potential. He's even seeing a lot of pro play, and you might see him take heal in those games, but in solo queue, please take Ignite. Akali is another champion who's seeing a lot more pro play, and buffs that came into her were really nice. She's doing really well again, so I am sorry to say that we're gonna have to put her in A tier, and you're gonna be seeing her a little more in your games. We then decided to add in Renekton as a mid lane option, as his play rate is around 2% for the mid lane with around a 55% win rate due to him just completely stomping assassin melee champions, or just melee champions in general. So if you hate Akali, Kassadin, Sylas, Kiana, he's just a perfect choice. He's very similar to why Pantheon works in the mid lane so well. Talon post-nerfs is gonna fall from S tier to high A tier, though after people make some adjustments to his optimal setup, he might go back to S tier. Nocturne post-nerfs in High-ELO is gonna go from A tier to B tier. He's mostly just a counter pick now, with Ziggs going to the Shadow Realm as he's safer there than he is in the mid lane. Our first highlighted champion is actually gonna be Casawin going from A tier to S tier. He pretty much counters all of the S tier champions in terms of matchups in most of the A tiers. In terms of popularity, in High-ELO, the champions go Syndra, Zoe, Sylas, LeBlanc, Yasuo, Katarina, Kiki, Diana, Talon, Echo, Pantheon, Cassio, and Aurelia. Now you'll notice he actually wins most of those matchups. He does lose to Pantheon, Kiana, and Talon in lane, but the good part about that is if they mess up at all, he just outscales them really hard. So he pretty much has matchup Nirvana right now, unless people start to really hard counterpick him properly in solo queue, which they almost never do. He's just gonna win most of his games, because even below that in terms of pick rate, you got popular competitive champions that are rising up. You got Nico, Victor, Orianna, Akali, Azir, Rumble. He beats all those too, or even some solo queue champions, Fizz, Vladimir. He just has so many good matchups right now, and with him being one of the, if not the strongest late game champion, he just gets there too easily right now. Our next change on the list is gonna be Kiana though, from A tier to S tier. With the fall of Talon due to the nerfs, it's gonna put her back on the map as the premier roaming AD assassin. She's also one of the few champions who beats Kassadin really hard in lane due to her roaming potential, and she's got better 1v1. If you're wondering why this champion does so well in solo queue, it's pretty simple. She's really strong against any champion or player who likes to stay in lane. Due to her amazing roaming potential, she pretty much shows up to every single skirmish first and has really strong tower dives. But unlike most or pretty much any other AD assassin, her ability to teamfight around Dragon is really strong due to her ultimate being unmissable around the Dragon Pit area, which is, you know, completely fair and balanced that it has an aftershock and stuff like that because it totally fits her theme or whatever. Alright though, Kiana hate aside, one of the most important things when you're looking to pick up Kiana is to remember to always set up a flank on team fights. And if you're having trouble doing that because they have vision of you, remember to pick up Number Glaive. It's very important to do both these two things. Last up though, we have a champion that's becoming incredibly popular in Chinese and Korean solo queue, and that's Galio, so we're moving him from B tier to A tier. So at this point in time, expect to see him in competitive play in the upcoming months. Now the reason for that is of course the buff to his ultimate giving people a magic damage shield. It's been helping out a lot more than what you would think in solo queue. Outside of that, the reason he actually does well in High-ELO solo queue is he's an anti-assassin pick, and those are just strong in this current meta in general because that's all people want to play. Now, the good thing about Galio is not only does he counter them in lane, but his ultimate allows them to counter them when they eventually try and roam because they know they can't 1v1 Galio. And compared to other tanks, he's actually able to one-shot people with the build that you'll see on screen here. Sure, you can't do the overpowered Tom Flash anymore, but he's still a very effective anti-assassin pick, so if you need one in your champion pool and don't like playing actual AD champions, he's a good choice. Moving down to the bot lane, our starting S tier roster will be Miss Fortune, Varus, Kai'Sa, Aphelios, Ezreal, Kalista, and Draven. For the changes, we've got Ashe from B tier to A tier, Veigar, thanks to the YouTube comments for helping me pronounce that, from B tier to A tier, and Lucian will be dropping out of S tier to make room for Draven. Now I know moving him from A tier to S tier is kinda controversial because a lot of people think that he kinda sucks still, but in terms of Masters Plus, his win rate is 59% with an 8% pick rate. Now Masters Plus data is a little inflated in terms of the win rate, but it still means he's incredibly strong. And the reason for it is the combination of the buff to his W and then the new Muramana build that Vincent from China has popularized recently. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the YouTube comments, but I believe Vincent, who is a challenger OTP on the Chinese Korean solo queue servers, is the one that popularized the Muramana into lethality build that has been so popular recently for Draven. The reason it's so good is because Draven has mana issues. Believe it or not, he always wants to be spamming his W, he always wants to be putting out axes because he does absolutely no damage without them, so the mana issues get taken away and is one of the most efficient first items in terms of damage output in the entire game. The reason you follow that up with lethality though is when you combine the buffs to his ultimate afterwards and the fact that he just does so well with AD, you're able to chunk the backlane to around half HP with just your ultimate, and then you can just 2-axe them for free kills. Some tips for using this build: you don't use your ultimate to execute people like normal. You're actually just going to use it to completely chunk out the enemy backline so they don't even want to join team fights. And also, for the love of God, please go pickaxe before tier. It is just so much better, and you might not trigger your teammates with the PTSD of Draven standing in fountain with a bunch of tears. And you've probably seen this a bunch by now, but Aphelios is going to be moving from A tier to S tier because 200 years of balance is more like 200 consecutive nerfs until he's not overpowered anymore. The reason why this is happening is at the beginning, a lot of people, including the ones who were playing Aphelios, just had no idea what he's doing. So even though he was receiving nerfs for being overpowered, the community is currently getting better at him faster than the rate of nerfs are impacting his win rate. It's just kind of funny because not only are people getting better at him mechanically, but also in terms of optimizing his build. Essence Reaver first has been the norm for a while now, but statistically IE first is just way better. And not to mention, having the IE quicker makes more WTF moments how did I die to Aphelios, which can create mental damage versus the enemy team, which should not be underestimated. Also, he's just one of the best late game carries in the current meta, and when you pair him with enchanter supports like Zilean or Lulu, he's completely 2v8 even in competitive play, and SKT had to find that out the hard way. That means that our last bot lane highlight will be Syndra moving from B tier to A tier. Now, bot laners have been complaining for a while that their role has no impact and they don't know what to do about it. Well, like the NA resident that I am, I've solved your problem by importing Syndra into the bot lane so that you can actually have some impact now. Syndra just in general right now is one of the strongest control mages in the meta, both in solo queue and competitive play, and you can probably even play her in top lane, jungle, support, it wouldn't matter. She's just that good right now, which is fantastic for the bot lane because she's got safe farming abilities and she's just gonna wombo combo so well with the support. If you're level 6 and you have to deal with Syndra in the bot lane, if she lands a stun, you're probably dead. If the support lands any form of CC, Syndra follows up, you're probably dead. The gank assist doesn't even need a support. She could probably 1v2 with the jungler coming in, you'll land the stun and there's a free kill there too. It's just Syndra is so oppressive in the early game, which is something completely different than people are used to as a bot lane carry, which is why she does so well. Lastly, we got our support S tier roster with Senna, Lulu, Bard, Yuumi, and Thresh. As for the changes, we got Leona falling out of S tier as engaged supports aren't doing as good as they were at the beginning of the season, with many counter picks coming into the meta, things like my boy Maokai or even Set, who I'll talk about in a bit. Then we got Braum moving from A tier to B tier, as even though he's a priority in competitive play, solo queue is a completely different beast. It might be a reliable strat to protect your AD carry in competitive, but in solo queue, it's not that reliable, hence why Braum's win rate is only around 50% in Diamond Plus. Now, it does get better the higher up the ladder you go, but just not enough to put him in A tier for solo queue compared to some of the more OP A tier picks like Nautilus or Leona. Oh, and also Zac support was a thing for a little bit, but it appears he's no longer played, so we shadow-realmed it. In terms of highlights, we are going to be moving Senna from A tier to S tier, although this is something that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Fasting Senna is honestly a support champion still, even though it's played as a bot laner, but I want you to let me know in the comments if you think we should move her down in terms of ranking, because we are incorporating that into our evaluation of her, and if we should be including Fasting Senna in the bot lane section. The reason I'm mentioning this is that she's a strong regular support, but when she is paired up with a Fasting Senna partner like Tahm Kench, Set, Maokai, Nautilus, Leona, she becomes incredibly overpowered, so it's difficult to rank the difference between strategies and if we should include it in multiple roles or just say that should be the standard and you should only do that, so let us know. It's just kind of sad though, because regular bot lane Senna is doing awful and regular support Senna is just significantly worse than the fasting strat, so there's no reason that you shouldn't be doing that if you're picking Senna. Our next highlight though is gonna be Lulu going from A tier to S tier. I know this is slightly controversial, but in terms of stats, she's got a 57% win rate in Masters Plus, 10% pick rate, and it is a little bit inflated, but to give you something to go off of, Thresh has double that play rate of running around 22%, and then his win rate is 55%. In terms of what's making Lulu so strong right now, it's the fact that she's one of the best scaling supports in the game currently, and she pairs well with some of the S tier ADs like Aphelios, Kalista, Draven, Varus, or even Misfortune, but do not pick her with Ezreal. Stat-wise, it is one of the worst lane combinations in the entire game. Lulu Ezreal is almost an automatic loss. But one of the reasons why she's doing so well is she's enabling some of these overpowered champions like Aphelios to just completely 1v9, because giving them the shield, the picks damage, the speed is way too good. And she's a great anti-dive and anti-assassin champion, which is all anyone plays right now. She is a very meta-dependent champion, which is why it's weird to put her in S tier, but she is super strong right now with the current way bot lane is being played. I should also mention that there is fear of her just getting all-in and dying repeatedly to some of the engaged supports, but in those situations, you can just take Relic Shield and Guardian and come out of the laning phase and scale okay. Last up, we've got Set moving from B tier to A tier. It might seem odd, but he's actually the fastest growing support pick in High-ELO around the world. He's able to 1v9 teamfights with his engage and W even as a support. He's also incredibly strong in the laning phase, but the key is to burn flash early. I'm not even kidding about that. The best advice I could give you when picking up Set support is if you haven't blown flash by level 3, you're playing Set support wrong and you should probably play something else. The strat with him is if you see a chance to hit a stun at level 1 or level 2 with your AD carry in auto range, you just flash E instantly and chunk them out really hard. You can net the kill sometimes or at least get lane pressure, and then after that, because you're taking Hex Flash, you can just sit in a brush and repeatedly threaten Hex Flash into Q, hit another E, and it should be a kill. Aftershock might be the most popular setup right now for him, but Nimbus Cloak with Omni Stone is increasing in popularity around the world, but specifically in Korea and China, so try both setups out to see which one you like better. That's it, folks. Thanks everyone for watching our 10.7 high-elo tier list. I'm your host, Adam Moriarty Isles, and as always, be sure to check out our other content at mobalytics.gg or even on this channel, and may the new and old solo queue gods be with you.